To me, it is much, much larger than we can ever imagine. You may want to call it the oversoul, the higher self, the higher consciousness. It is that type of a thing that is so large and so big that it has everything. When we reach that part of the mind, there is nothing we can't find out. It knows absolutely everything about the person. That is the part that I work with. I call it the subconscious, and it answers to that. I know when I'm speaking to it, I'm speaking to a much larger part of the person. When I reach that part, it is remarkable what it can do. And I know when I have reached that part, and it's part of my technique on how to do this, because it will always speak about the person in the third person. It won't be I or me answering the question. It will be he or she. A lot of times it'll say, well, finally I'm getting a chance to talk. I've been trying to get through to him and he won't listen to me. That part, it talks about you. And it'll say things that you would never say about yourself. At times it can often be cruel because it is objective. It's like the objective observer standing back and watching everything that is happening. It has your best interest in mind. It loves you and it wants to help, and it gets very frustrated when it can't. It can often be cruel because it'll say, why can't they understand? They're harming their body. They're doing things they shouldn't. It'll tell them exactly what will happen if they proceed down the path they're going, what will happen to their body. This part of the mind is extremely powerful. It takes care of all of the functions of the body. You don't have to tell yourself to breathe or your heart to beat. It takes care of everything going on inside the body. This is why when people come to me with physical complaints, and I get lots and lots of those, as I said the first day, I've had done thousands and thousands of people, and I found patterns that have set up in what I'm doing. When they come to me with these physical problems, we can find out by contacting the subconscious directly why they are experiencing the problem, the physical problem, and then we can proceed to take it away. It is that simple. And also, the subconscious is like a gigantic computer. It has the records of everything that has ever happened to the person in this life and in all the lives they've ever lived. It can just records it in the minutest detail. I often wonder what it does with all of these tiny, tiny details. Because in your daily life, you are bombarded by thousands and thousands of bits of information. They come from all around you. These are things you see, you hear, you smell, a taste, you feel. It's thousands and thousands of pieces of information are bombarding you constantly. This is going into the subconscious mind, and it is being recorded by the subconscious mind and accumulated. In one of my other talks I'll be giving as we go through all of these series, I'll be explaining why I found out what it is accumulating these things for. But you are constantly being bombarded by all of this information that the subconscious mind is collecting. You cannot be aware of it. It would overwhelm you. It would be way, way too much that your mind could not handle it, your conscious mind. So as you go through your daily life, you are focusing on what is important around you. The main things that you have to pay attention to in your daily life. That's what we focus our attention on. And the other bits and pieces of information are not being noticed. They're being recorded, but they're not being noticed by the average person. But a lot of these psychic abilities come from this too, because we are being bombarded by this, but most people don't pick up on these things. Many times when I have the person in regression, and they'll be describing every little thing about the scene. They'll be describing the wallpapers, the designs on the rugs, the fabric on the furniture, etc., because they are becoming aware of all the details. In those cases, I have to move them out of the scene and move them forward because those are not important to the story that we're trying to find. But this gives an example of how much detail the subconscious does accumulate. Now, one very important thing that I have found, people are not aware of the power of their own mind. You have the power to heal yourself. You can, because you have power over your body. In one of the future shows, I'm going to bring on a doctor who was a medical doctor for 40 years, and he has now written a book that our company has published called The Power of the Mind and how we heal ourselves. And that will be focusing on that part. But another thing people don't realize is they make themselves sick. They create the illnesses for whatever reason. This doesn't mean they do this consciously. People would never come, they'd always say, well, I don't want to be sick. I didn't do this to myself. I don't mean they do this. Create an illness, a problem like that, a physical problem for a definite reason. But they are not aware of it consciously. In my work, we have to find out what's going on in their life that they would want to have this illness in their life. Because it can often go back to problems they're having in their present everyday life, but we're not aware of it. We go to the doctor, we get medicines, we get pills, we cover up the symptoms, but we don't get to the cause of what is really happening, what is really causing these problems in our life. Some of the things I'm going to say may sound very drastic and unbelievable, but I have found this in thousands and thousands of cases. I've come to these conclusions that every physical symptom, every ache, pain, or physical symptom in the body is the subconscious trying to give you a message. It's trying to get your attention. It's trying to tell you something. And if you don't pay attention, if you don't understand, and most of us don't understand what it's trying to tell us, then the illness or the problem gets worse because it's still trying to get our attention. Then eventually, if we still can't understand what it's trying to tell us, then the problem will turn into a disease or something that is a lot more difficult to repair and to fix when it gets to that point. Now, the subconscious, when it speaks here in these sessions, it speaks directly to me too sometimes. When they are speaking about the person in the third person, they will often use the word we. We do this and we say this. So I've learned to say they so that I can identify with them. They have told me that if we can get to the person before they have an operation, there is a chance that we can fix the problem and they won't have to have the operation. Now this is drastic, and I know a lot of people are not going to believe it, but they said once something has been taken out, we can't put it back. But we can find the cause of the problem before they have the operation. In many cases, we can alleviate it. I have found many cases when people come to me, tell me they're having problems in different parts of their body. I can usually tell them what's going on in their present day life because the subconscious is very literal. It will affect different parts of the body the same way over and over again. It is very literal in what it's trying to tell you. But, being humans, we don't know this, we don't pay attention to it, we don't understand it. To give some examples, I have many people who, as they come in, we do our interview and I ask about their lives, what's going on in their lives, about their family members, and then they have a list of questions, and usually we will get to if they have any physical problems that they want to explore while we're having this session. many times they will tell me they have back problems, either across the shoulders, have pains there, up and down the spine. It's very common to have middle back and lower back problems. This is very common. I get a lot of people like this, and I know it's because of the hectic lifestyle that we live in. But when the person tells me they have back problems, the first thing I will ask them, do you feel like you're carrying a heavy load in this life? And usually they'll say, well, yes, I didn't even think about that. They've got, lots going on in their work, in their marriages, and it is affecting them in their back. I've had many people like this. I even had an emergency room doctor that came to me, and it was her problem. And whenever it came out under the session, it was being caused by a heavy load of pressure because she had the feeling she should be able to save everyone she works with, which is absolutely impossible. She was putting too much pressure on herself. I've had businessmen who've come to see me, and they are definitely carrying too much of a load. They're putting too much on them with their work, with the responsibilities, and it starts affecting the parts of the back. So this is what I mean about it being literal. People come, many of them talk about having hip problems and pain going down the leg, especially on the right side, down on the hip and down the leg into the foot. And this is happening more and more. And when I get people like that, I have found it usually means they have been offered a choice in their life. They can go in a different direction if they want to. But sometimes they're very, not so much happy, but let's say they are content, wouldn't even be the right word, but their way of life is predictable and it's stable. They would rather stay with what they know than wander off into the unknown. So they may be being offered a new direction, a new way to go, maybe a new job, maybe a marriage, who knows. But they're being offered another direction. They are holding back. They are afraid to take the first step out in the new direction. This creates pains in the hip and the leg and the foot, especially on the right side. And that's what usually I can ask them, is there anything going on in your life right now that you feel you're being offered another direction and you're holding back? And usually that's what will come out is, oh yes, but they have not made the connection. But see what I mean about the subconscious being very literal in the message that it's trying to tell you. And once the message is delivered and they understand what it is, and we find this out during the session, once they find out what it is the subconscious is trying to tell them, the ailment goes away. And sometimes it's miraculous the way it goes away so suddenly. Because why try keep giving a message when it's already been delivered and understood? I have people who are in stomach problems, and it'll boil down to something's going on in their life they cannot stomach. See here again, the subconscious is very literal. People with problems, aches and pains in their hand and wrist, I've found out sometimes they're holding on to something that they don't need in their life anymore. And they should release it and let it go. So some of these things, these people have never thought about this before. It's a whole new concept, because why would somebody make themselves sick? Now there's some people who, even though they discover these things, they really don't want to be well. They don't want to be cured. They don't want to be healed. And I'm sure a lot of you know of these kind of people. You probably have them in your own life. Some people, their illness, their problem, their ailment is all they have. They don't have anything else. Sometimes this is what gives them attention. makes you feel sorry for them, makes them special if you have someone paying attention. In a case like that, you see why they have created the ailment. But in a case like that, if they were to remove the ailment, they wouldn't have anything. So in those cases, they will cling to it even though it is not in their best good, and they just keep getting sicker. So we can't help everyone.